Now, if you're making a site based off of an image that you may have, and so if I go here into Google for the Eames house, I'm able to find like a site plan where it kind of helps just describe a little bit of the topography. And especially, I was able to find this other image from this presentation where it's kind of showing how the site has it this retaining wall because it's got a pretty steep drop here. And then it's kind of flattened or leveled out around the building, and then it's going to drop off again, but this is not going to be as steep. So what I did for this one, or what I'm going to try to do, I have some fickle results sometimes with it, is I went into my site plan here in floor plans, and I linked that image same way that I linked like a floor plan in, was I went to insert and then link image. I placed my image in here. I did need to use the rotate tool a little bit just to play around with it and get it into the right angle. And then I just dragged it using my tool right here to kind of just place it into the area. The thing that I'm really most concerned about is like getting their retaining wall from this picture lined up pretty well with like my retaining wall that I have like in my model. So how I have those two lined up pretty well. And then I'm going to essentially make a flattened area of land around my building and then just build elevation points up in this direction and then sort of also build them down in this direction. So within the site plan, I'm going to go into massing and site and then topo solid here again. Same thing like with the other house where we built a site from scratch is I'm going to go into edit type, and I just want to play around a little bit with the structure just so I have some thickness to the site if I needed to ever go down a lot. So I went down 40 feet with my earth, and that's going to be plenty so that this way, if I ever need to go down, it's at least as thick as I need to go. And like, I'll probably only be going around 4 or 5 feet down this way, so I should be fine with it. Within this one, I'm going to create a boundary line for my topography, but using this line tool, I'm going to use a height offset of -4 inches because that's roughly about the size that this slab is going to be here. And so I'm just going to create a boundary. I'm going to rough it around the site that this image is kind of given me. I'm not going to be incredibly accurate or particular with it. Um, If I was doing something from an import, then that site would just be built off of that original import from it. So I'm just kind of a little bit lazily going around, and then I'm going to say, okay, please make my topography. The next thing I'm going to do then with this topography, because right now if I go into my 3D view, it is just this flat slab here, and I don't want that. So I'm going to go into site, I'm going to click on the edge of it, and I'm going to add points. And the first thing I'm going to do is add in these -4 inch points, quite a few of them, like along this retaining wall, so that this way I can keep it flat up against the building. And I'm going to kind of just place a couple of these points sort of sporadically along the edge face of this wall where I've got that. And even like a couple of them, say over here, maybe over here too. I've got a couple of them this way. Because essentially what I'm trying to do is just keep a general flat area around my building. I don't want, when I start adding in those variances in height, for it to all of a sudden just start spiking all around my structure. And I am kind of just roughly following some of these topography lines that I've been given, not being incredibly careful to follow them. The more I place, obviously, the more accurate this can get. And then I'm going to go, and I believe I want this set at current level. We're about to see is I'm going to offset down -1. That's 2. I'll do 2 feet. So I'll do 2 feet down from here, following along these points. So I just kind of create a slope going downwards. And then I'll do, say, -4. And I'll go these points here. And that number that's popping up is essentially how, like, when it triangulates between these 3 points, right here where my cursor is currently at -310. And I'm just kind of forcing it to say, like, okay, well, be at -4 though. Say -6, that's +6. And so I'm just kind of making a sloped little valley or area here. And I can hit escape once. So that way I can kind of highlight some of these points and say, let's make these like -8 or so. I can click on this point. You can also change them here, just as changing this witness. 8. I was trying to get both of these at once, but didn't seem to do it. These 3 I should be able to get all at once, and then I'll change that up here. -8. And then let's just hit escape a couple times just to see how that made or what changes that made to my site. And so again, I've got now flattened area here, and then you can see sort of this slope coming off. So let's click on it again and add in some more points. Or even then, I might want to say hit escape once and change this point to like -4 feet. If you do this in the 3D view, you can really kind of see how some of those changes and effects are happening too. So you can kind of get a little bit of like live feedback. I'll make that -8. And sometimes it is just playing with numbers. And then I'm going to go back into my site plan and then start working on this slope upward. So I'm going to go into site, click on the edge of it, add points. If this is at -4 and I want to make a pretty steep hill up, I'm going to go like +3, or, I'll do +2. I'll keep going with values of 2. And then I'm going to put some points upward here. And I'm feeling free to kind of zoom in on this site. Even though it's pretty pixelated, I can still pretty roughly follow my line pretty well. I'm getting lost in some trees for a moment. And then we might even kind of pull it down here a little. And then I'm going to go up, say, I'll even pull it over here a little bit for this steep hill. And I'll put a 2-point right on that edge. I'll do +4. Again, I'm pretty roughly placing these. I'm going to try to compact them as much as possible in this area because I really want to make this part here against this wall as steep as I can in this instance. And sometimes you'll definitely find that it will almost track sort of kind of where you don't want it to go, but we can either delete points or add points back in. And then I'll go up 8 to make an even like steeper area. You just want to be a little careful. At this point, we're pretty far from our building, but we want to try to make sure we're keeping that area of our building flat. And I am going a little rough with it. I'll do a 12. Again, just because at this point then we're getting a little far away from where this big part is, or we're leveling out a little bit. 16 here, and then we might just end with like, say, 20 at the top. And a little bit because of the fact that this is such a steep slope or steep site here, I am just eyeballing and estimating it a little bit. We might even do 20 here just to kind of compact points in. So I'm just clicking increase my heights and sort of control the slope a little bit. I'm going to hit escape once. I'm going to say or not negative, positive 24. That could have been an interesting amount. I'll make this point positive 24. This point 24. That's a 5, Dinah. This point 24. This point 2, I want to put it 24 feet. And then if I hit escape twice, I'll be able to see my site a little bit more. And, oh, why does it keep doing this? Where it puts some of these relative. So let's see if I go into add point. So something happened where this is at 24. This piece got put up to 57 for whatever reason. So let's put it back down to say 18. I think it's because it's doing it based off of levels. Let's see if I can look at it from the front because I don't want that big mountain range there. Put that at 18. Kind of will level it out a little bit. So yeah, for whatever reason, some of my points, they got triangulated, really done peaked themselves up. What am I doing to do that? I'm a little unsure, unfortunately. But if I like look at it directly from the left, I can select all of those kind of mountain peaks and I could start to level them out a little bit. I put them at 16 feet. These ones, maybe I'll put at 18 just to kind of see how it's sort of leveling it. It's always kind of interesting. Some projects will and some projects won't. And any insight to help get it to not would be greatly appreciated. It's definitely something I am doing. But you can especially see where like this one's at 6, this one's at 2, this one's at 9. And so we kind of want to come in and put it in a little bit of an evener area. This one's at 18, this one's at 20, this one's at 8. And so it's kind of just like how they all get calculated and put together. 18, this one's back at 20. And so I'm just kind of going and adjusting some of these to at least be where when I'm in this row, I'm at a lower number than when I'm in this row. And hit escape a couple times. And so we can build a site through just looking at an image, but again, it's a little bit of being careful. Let me hit escape once. And I'll adjust this one to say 16. We'll do another 16 here. This one maybe we'll put at 18. It's a little bit of what I'm doing right now is just a guessing game to rotate around and find some of these peaky points. I still definitely want a pretty steep slope happening here. And the good news is I'm getting that steep slope. A little bit of work to some of these just rises up. And you can also drag points just down manually without typing. So I can just drag on these grips and pull it down. on any that are like immediately sticking out to me. But very, very basic overview of how then you can create your site from just a direct image. And then, of course, go into your site tab here, and then you can delete the image after the fact.